Welcome back, everybody. I have my good friend here, Michael Pinter, are going to be. If you're doing business in the New York tri-state area, this is a must listen to or must watch episode. So let's just kick it right off. Michael, how you doing today, man? Thanks for
Great.
coming on the
Thanks for
show.
having me.
Awesome. Well, listen, Michael, could you give everyone a little bit about your background, kind of what you did before real estate?
Sure. I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. That's where I met my partner, and that was good for about 11 or 12 years. I was there from 97 till 2012, 2013. And then when everything hit the fan, things got worse. And I got tired of doing loans for people who were making lots of money flipping properties. And my partner and I decided that we wanted to do it ourselves. And we've been doing it full time for about 6 years now.
Okay. So you're in the mortgage business. Obviously, that was very good, probably from 2003 up to 2006 or 7. And then
It
after
was
that,
good from 97 till 2006. It was great.
it was just so what were you a broker? What were you doing exactly in the mortgage
I did a
business?
lot of things. I ran a branch. I was a loan officer. I ran a branch office. I created a secondary marketing division where we were selling the loans in a different way. And I did a lot of different things in the mortgage business. We when I started, we were a mortgage broker, and I converted us to a mortgage banker so that we could make the loans ourselves. And then we were just selling them to some lenders. But then there were better ways to sell them to make more money, and we just kept growing as a company. That company's still around, doing very well.
Okay, awesome. And I'm guessing you liked the mortgage business. I mean, what were some of your things you liked about it and stuff you didn't like about it?
I liked it. I liked building something. I liked growing something. I liked watching things changing for the better. But it's so, after 2006 and 2007, there was so much regulation added. I think we were one of the first non-bank entities to get interviewed by the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Division. Like, they didn't even know what they were doing, but all they did when they came in was just say, you need to hire more people and hire outside auditors to audit the inside people, and then hire inside people to audit the outside people. And I was like, it doesn't even make sense. And we weren't doing anything wrong. There were places that really did bad things that were out of business, but
Yeah.
we got audited, and I could tell that the regulation was out of control, and it's only grown since then. And I didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. So you had to move your cheese. So you pivoted into the real estate investment business. So let's kind of get into that now. So what's your business look like today? And let's kind of actually go back a little bit. What was your business like when you started? I know you were doing one model with the investment business, and you actually changed in the last year to a completely different model, a really way of getting deals. So let's kind of go back. How'd you start in the real estate business? And then let's go all the way up to where you're at today, the market and the marketing and stuff like that.
Sure. So for 4 years, we really bought everything either at live auctions. We went to the Nassau County auction every Tuesday, and we bought properties there. We bought properties at online auctions. We bought properties that were on MLS, but we didn't spend $1 in marketing. And we major rehabbed or gut rehabbed almost every property that we bought, which we thought was great. And when people would talk about wholesaling, I always thought a wholesaler was like a bottom feeder who knuckle dragger who takes a few $100s when the rehabber makes $100,000.
Oh yeah, totally accurate. Totally.
Doing, that this is the way, I wanted to be Tarek El Moussa from Flip or Flop, and wholesaler sounded crazy. And the truth is, the market was doing so well in 2013, 14, 15 that even when we didn't do a deal right, we still made money on it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
4 years, we made more money every year. I mean, it went well. But about year 2017, 2018, we saw a few things happening in the market. First of all, the market was not growing up at the same rate, right? Things were flattening out. Certainly in the high-end markets, things have been flattening out for a while. And we realized that we don't know where the market's going to go. It's been 10 years since the bottom, right? Because we lived through the bottom in the mortgage business, 2006, 2007. And we didn't want to get into long-term projects. And every pain in the butt that we had was due to construction. So we started looking at wholesaling, and we dabbled in wholesale. We were able to wholesale a deal that we bought at auction, where we had access to the property, which is not always the case. We were able to clean it out and sell it to a cash buyer, assign our bid to the cash buyer. And it was like the greatest thing ever. We got paid, and we didn't have to deal with any of the problems. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years, we decided we really wanted to switch to a wholesale model and a wholesale model. And I'll sort of explain why we might do either. And then we started spending money on marketing. So we started marketing in a bunch of ways, and we're still testing out different ways to market. but it was great. And in 2018, business almost doubled from 2017. So that was great. And we did about 50 deals last year. And we're on track to do more than that in 2019. 2019 is looking like a great, great year.
That's awesome, man. So that's awesome. So let's just pause here. So you were buying all these properties at auction. So how are you, and I guess I've never done this, so that's why it's almost a curiosity question. How were you able to do that when there were so many other bidders breathing down your neck? How the heck can you make money buying at auction? There's a
couple of things. First of all, the auction's a funny thing. We really spent almost 2 full days of a week on it. So when we were buying enough deals, and in the beginning that could have been one deal every few months, it made sense. But it's not an easy thing, because here are the real problems with buying at a live auction. First of all, you get information, let's say Thursday, from Property Shark, or there are other providers. Everything on that list can get canceled. Every single list. We bought a property at auction. The auctions are at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays, where the borrower filed bankruptcy at 10:59 a.m. on Tuesday. So you think that would be great to give you money back. It took like 5 months to get our deposit back. That's just how it works. So it's pain. So you're given this huge list of deals that might sell, but you really don't know how many of them are going to show up or not. So you might spend 90% of your time on deals that aren't even going to be auctioned off. And the auctions get canceled for a million different reasons. Sometimes they show up later, sometimes they don't. So that's the first problem. The second problem is, even when you find something and it is on auction, you don't know what the bank's upset price is going to be, which is the minimum amount the bank is going to take. So you may find an amazing deal, and you may say your price is $300,000 for it, but the bank's upset price can be $800,000. So that's something that's going to end up being an REO, but it's just something you wasted all your time on. And then what was happening more often is, through the years, a lot more bidders were showing up. So even if the property that we were looking at that was in our area and seemed like a good deal and was vacant, or whatever the criteria we were using were, showed up at the auction. And even if the upset price was what we wanted, we were getting outbid by people, sometimes by end users, sometimes by other investors who didn't know what they're doing, sometimes by investors who just looking for anything to buy. So after a while, we realized this is not a sustainable model. It's too much competition and too much work for not enough deals. So we really stopped going. My partner was pushing me to stop going even earlier, but we stopped going. And it's been much better when we are marketing direct to sellers, because marketing direct to sellers, you can get the deals that you need. It's very hard when you're competing with a bunch of other guys, especially guys who don't know what they're doing.
Oh, totally. It just screws everything up. And then obviously the bank's going to take the highest offer, because that's the only thing they care about.
For sure.
And a lot of things are out of your control. So you shifted into more marketing to motivate. So let's tap into a little bit of the marketing. Then we're going to spend the bulk of today's show on why New York is different and what to do about it. So what are you doing? What are some high level things you're doing for marketing? Obviously, you pivoted from basically doing no advertising to now having probably a decent ad budget every month, especially in Long Island, where it's not cheap to do that out there. So what are like 2 or 3 things that you're doing to generate leads consistently out in your market?
So we have a PPC provider, and we get PPC leads, which has been up and down. Sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're slow. I think they're a good provider, so they're tweaking it, and we just got a couple of good deals off of PPC. So we're looking forward to that getting us more business, but it's expensive.
Yes.
And we did our best with a direct mail provider who we recently got rid of, and we're going to a different direct mail provider. This was like a done-for-you direct mail provider, where they wouldn't even give us the list and they would just mail. And we had a good return, like 7 or 8 to 1 on our spending with them. But I think we're using Todd Swaggerty at Yellow Letters HQ now.
I use him too.
He seems to know what that list is. So we just bought that list, and we're going to mail to that list ourselves. And then we're trying another list provider, data provider, to mail to. And I'm confident we're going to see similar numbers on our return on investment on that. We have Facebook advertising. We're trying a few different things. I think we might try text messaging. We want to try everything until
Sure.
The real problem with marketing is that you need to do it for a really long time to figure out if it works or not.
Totally. You need data.
9 months, like a year almost, to figure it out.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, and especially in New York, because your sales cycle is going to be longer, which we'll actually pivot into now. So Oh, I'll recap that real quick for everyone. So Michael, he was doing auction properties, zero cost per buy, just going making bids. It was a numbers game. Now he pivoted. He's doing direct mail. He's doing if you guys don't know what PPC is, it's pay per click. It's Google advertising, basically. You're bidding on keywords. And he's also going to get into some text message marketing. So he's doing whatever he needs to do to get these off market properties. So awesome, Michael. Thanks for sharing with everyone. Hopefully we gave some people some good ideas here. So let's pivot into the bulk of our show why I really wanted to bring you on. I saw a couple of your videos on LinkedIn that I really liked because I could relate to them so much. And if you're listening to this podcast right now and you are in the tri-state area, so you're in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, this is going to be a podcast that you will get value from. I can guarantee it. So Michael, I want to talk today and really unpack and dissect why it's different to do deals in New York. And it might not be better or worse, but it's different. And what can we do? How can we provide value to everyone listening and watching to this if they're in this market? How can we provide value to them and give them some actionable tactical steps so they can, number one, have the right expectations when they're going to do business in the state, primarily New York. And number two, what can they avoid and how can we really help them by telling some of the lessons we might have learned the hard way we can give to them on this podcast. So let's get into it. So I'll kind of let you take over from here and, we can kind of go back and forth.
Right. So first let's talk about the differences, right? I when I first came up with this and I was coming up with ideas for the YouTube videos, I came up with 6 differences. There's actually one more that just came to mind, but the differences that I had, just to list them off, is that the home prices are significantly higher. The taxes are significantly higher.
Significantly higher.
Attorneys and how they kill deals and affect deals. The EMD, the earnest money deposit, or the money you put down a contract, much higher than other places. People put down $100 in New York. If you try to put down $100, I think they'll laugh at you. Another one was just the attitude in New York, where I think people have a little bit of a thicker skin and are expecting to get ripped off more than in other parts of the country.
Yes.
But then the good things were really that the demand is amazing. This is the biggest metropolitan area in the country, and that the spreads are high because you can make good money. I mean, our average deal makes 30 grand. I talk to people in Phoenix and they'll almost never make 30 grand. They make 8 grand on a deal and they're thrilled with 10 grand. So,
yeah.
So that's sort of 5 reasons why it's harder and 2 reasons why it might be better.
Yeah. Totally.
Just to give a synopsis of each of these. The first one is that the home prices are high. So there are areas in Long Island where you can buy a house for, $175,000. There are. Those are not the best areas. Those are the depressed areas. Our average sale price is probably $475 to $500. So that's
like acquisition price?
No, an ARV. Right? Our acquisition price is much lower, but in the 3s and the 4s. But a middle class area in Long Island, houses are going to go mid 4s to 600,000. That's just what they go for. So that's the home prices. So you have to figure that in because I see people going to other areas like you said, Texas, where you went, and Indiana, Missouri, these places, Mississippi, where you're going to sell this house for $100,000. So it's money.
Yeah, I bought houses for 11.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Money. Right. I wish I could buy a house for 11. In our areas, the land itself is usually worth at least $150,000. So if I had a knockdown house, I could sell it to a builder for $150,000, $180,000. We've sold land to a builder for $180,000. So that's something you have to figure in money-wise. You got to make sure you have the difference between what your lender is going to give you and what you have to put up. The second thing is taxes. So taxes really affects a lot of things. It affects your holding costs, which is a big deal. We bought houses where the taxes were $30,000, and it wasn't the amazing house, but that's just what it is. So if you have 6 months hold on that, that's $15,000 just for taxes. But it also affects, the disposition or whether you're going to rent it. In other places in the states I just mentioned, the taxes there can be $600 a year. Here it can be $1,200 a month. So you got to figure that in. Renting a single family home in the areas we work usually does not cash flow positively. Can't do that. The big one is attorneys. So attorneys are a big part of it, and we discussed this before the podcast about maybe there's a way around it. But the truth is, we're concerned that even if we've got a seller to sign something without it, if they weren't represented on the transaction by an attorney, it's just not common for the area. And if they decided later to come back at us and sue us, I think they might have a case because they didn't have representation. And since representation is so commonplace here, it's a big deal. But because that is part of it, the sales cycle is tremendously long. So as we discussed in other places, a seller says, let's do it, let's go ahead. You get them to sign the contract, give them a check for $100. You're in contract.
You're
By
good.
us, someone says, yeah, I mean, we have an entire category, and we have, I'm just looking at the board too. There's 7 properties right now where their seller has said yes, and we're still not in contract. Some of them have been there a while.
Yeah.
So sometimes I got to get them an attorney. Sometimes the attorney wants to kill the deal, tells them they're crazy. Sometimes the attorney says they don't want it to be assignable. There's all kinds of things that can come up.
Oh, goodness.
And it takes a long time. And attorneys want to earn their fee. So the attorney will change the contract, and our attorney will go back and forth. And it's very important to have a very good attorney who deals with investors and knows how to do transactions. We have one, and there are several. But if you have an attorney who doesn't know, that attorney can derail your whole business. I've spoken to other people trying to do this, and they started to get into the business, and their attorney told them, you can't do this. You're not allowed to wholesale a contract. You're not a realtor, and all kinds of stupidity. And every kind of way that an attorney wants to protect his client, he basically shut their whole business down. So you need an attorney that does this, and you need an attorney that understands how it works, and an attorney that understands how to do an assignment. Those are important things, but it affects the business in New York. And if you're listening to a guru from Ohio, he's not going to know what you're talking about, because, as I said, we have a great CRM and investor fuse, where when you send the offer, if the seller accepts it, it already pushes it to transactions. But by us, we have all these accepted offers. Like I said, 7 of them, but they're not a transaction yet because we're not in contract. And even our PPC provider doesn't understand what's with that deal. You told me the guy took your offer and it's still not in contract. But that's what you have to deal with in New York, and you got to have that patience. I'm sure for some people it drives them nuts, and coming from another state where there's no attorneys to New York is probably incredibly frustrating.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we have so much we can unpack here. So the big thing is, I actually want to let everyone know. So if you guys haven't figured out, I am actually from New York originally. I live in San Diego now. I still do a ton of business in New York, but because of all the things Michael said, I made a very tough decision about a year and a half ago, a little over a year ago, actually, to actually start marketing in other areas, because the sales cycle was literally ruining my business. And I was about to go my business was about to be over because the sales cycle was so long. I had no cash flow coming in. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this, because it was like we had all these deals in the pipeline, and then they would fall out, and then I wouldn't have no money. So I decided to actually start marketing down in Texas to offset the sales cycle in New York, because I still love this market, because there's a lot of benefits that we'll get into. But the attorneys are real, and the long sales cycle is real. So you have to, find ways to mitigate that. So I think there's so many things you mentioned here. I want to talk about probably the things that the investors in New York, obviously the prices are high. A lot of people know that. Let's talk about 2 things that I think is very important when it comes to this. It's number 1, let's zoom in on the attorneys. And number 2, let's get into the earnest money deposit, because that's something that is no joke.
So, I remember when we first started doing business, we were using an attorney.
Sure.
We used an attorney who was telling us that we can't, you got to put down 10%. No one's going to take it without 10%. So that's not true. So we're going into contract on a house for $275,000. We ask for $10,000. Sometimes let us for more. It's negotiated, but usually if it's $10,000, $15,000, they'll take it. But you got to put that down. And there is a risk there, right? You have to be able to close. We learned a few years ago that really you need multiple ways out. So if you can't wholesale a deal, you better be prepared to buy the deal and then do the work yourself, or do something to it where you can make money on it. There is risk, and obviously if you get into a deal where you put $20,000 down and you're looking at a more than $20,000 loss, you may walk away from it. But you need to be able to close, and there's enough money in there that they want you to close. You can't, in other parts of the country, you put $100 down and that's a legal contract. Here, the guy's being represented by an attorney, and you send him a check for $100. He's gonna put it through the shredder and say you're out of your mind. So it's a negotiable, but you gotta give standard in the industry on a retail deal is 10%. Buying a house for $1 million, putting $100,000 down. That's standard in the industry. So you have to deal with that, and very often, even if your attorney knows what he's doing, the seller's attorney may not, and the seller's attorney almost always asks for 10% down. Like I said, you can negotiate, but it's got to be a significant amount in New York. It's a big difference. If we could put $100 down on every deal, it would make life a lot easier.
Yeah. So you're turning around and you're putting down 10%. So that, and have you ever put down, I'll just tell you what I'm doing in my market. I'm not in Long Island, so it's a little more lenient up in Orange County, I guess, quasi upstate. We're putting anywhere from $500 to $3,000 down, depending on where the house is. And we're really making a case for, hey, we buy 2 to 4 houses a month. We can't put 10% down on every property because we have all our money in earnest money deposit. And we're actually having that agreement with the seller before we go to their attorney, because we know their attorney is going to bring that up. And we're having some success with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we're trying to lower and lower our expectations. When we make an offer, we put in $5,000. But what we're finding is that once the seller's attorney gets a hold of it, he's like,
yo,
what are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So that's what you guys, so if you guys are listening here, I want you guys to realize, if you're a new investor, Michael made a great point, is that you need to have more than one exit strategy in New York, because I have gotten in this position so many times where we were only going to wholesale it and we couldn't find a buyer, and we had a good earnest money deposit down, and we had to either scramble to close on it, and it was a lot harder to close because we weren't prepared to close, or we had to cancel the contract and look like a bunch of idiots. So Michael, I really like how you're bringing that up, because it's something that people think. I think the problem here is that there's a lot of great education out there. I'm not knocking a single person, because there's a ton of great education. But when they come and they circle around, they go around the country to these little events, and they go to New York, they're telling everyone in New York the same thing that they're telling everybody in Phoenix or Nevada. And it's just not factually accurate. And that's why I think a lot of new investors, especially in the tri-state area, they have the wrong expectations planted in their mind. And when they go out and they face the inevitable failure, because it's inevitable for anyone, you fail, I fail, everyone fails. But when they face that failure, they're perceiving it much more differently, because they heard it from somebody who doesn't really do deals in New York. And that's why you and I hopped on this podcast today, so we can talk about the right expectations, because you have to know what you're doing in here. And it's a little bit tougher to do deals. So
Absolutely.
Would you say that's true? Because I think that's the problem.
Absolutely true. I see. I'm a member of certain Facebook groups, and I see people asking questions that I know were seeds that were planted from a guy telling them how to do business who's not from New York. Yes. There are a lot of groups, and they're good groups, but they tell them something on how to do business, and this is easy, and don't worry about it. And then they go, I can't. I'm buying something. It's a great deal for $200,000. But I offered the guy $200, and he told me to go to hell. Well, yeah, that's what happens in New York. If you offer him $200, he's going to tell you to go to hell, just because the guy told you. The guy who's doing that is from Boise, Idaho, where they do that. It's just not the same.
Exactly. Real estate's market specific. So here let's try to come up with some solutions here. So if there's a new investor out there, so with the attorneys, what are you doing with another thing that we run into? This happened to me on a property in Yonkers a couple months ago. We were really in a sticky spot. Is the assignment agreement. That's a big deal killer that we see as attorneys, so if you guys aren't familiar with this, basically in New York, the traditional way is the attorney sends the purchaser the contract, and then my attorney reviews it, and we go through it to make sure there's no crazy specific performance or anything in there. And then a lot of the times what happens is in the contract, it'll say, I think it's number 26 usually, this contract is not assignable. Okay. So what that means, you can't legally assign that contract. And if you're wholesaling, the cleanest way to wholesale is to assign the contract for an assignment fee and close the deal that way. So what are you doing in that situation? Because we have a whole system for that.
So literally today, we got a contract for a seller, and my attorney sent back the red line contract, and the only change was those words exactly. It said contract may not be assignable, and he changed it to may be assignable. Yes. That was the change he made. And I know the seller I already spoke to about it. And this is what we usually tell the seller. If it comes up, I tell the seller, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I said, but we have several investors. We have several entities. We never know what's going to happen. I said, if I have an investor comes in and wants to put it in a self-directed IRA, I need to assign it to that entity right away. I can't not have it assignable. I said, it's a deal killer. I get it. I said, and this was a seller who asked for other things. They wanted a bigger deposit, ironically, and they wanted more flexibility on the close, which I was fine with. And they said, oh, my attorney told me it shouldn't be assignable. I said, that's a deal breaker. I said, I'm not going to move on that. I said, I need that flexibility. And then I usually bring, and she knows exactly what she goes. I don't care if you pay me what I want. I don't care what you do with it. So her attorney's going to get that red line contract. It was like an hour ago, to ask his client is okay. And hopefully she's going to say, yeah, it's no problem. And then we'll be fine. But that clause has to be changed for sure.
Absolutely. You have to. I mean, what we'll do in that situation is if it's a smoking deal, we'll just buy it or double close it. But it's got to be like a smoking deal for us to just say, forget about it.
we want, we rarely double close, but
Yeah.
when we do, it's really expensive in New York
It's
also.
scary. Oh yeah, it's
Right?
terrible.
You have to pay transfer tax, which is $4 per thousand. You have to pay additional title fees. I mean, we once had a deal where
Double legal fees. We paid 2 legal fees when we double closed. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
Like, what?
So we had a deal, one of the best deals we ever did. We had $110,000 spread on a wholesale deal. And the seller was like a guy who I thought was going to be a problem. So I asked my partner, I said, should we double close? And they told us it was going to cost us about $8,000 to double close, which, it's still a good deal. But
Yeah, still a good deal.
I asked my attorney, I go, can this guy walk away? He said, listen, he really can't. He said, he's got no outs. He said, if he doesn't sell it to you, and you want to buy it, you can put a list pendants on the house. He'll never sell it to anybody else for
Yeah, it's
until he
ridiculous.
settles with you. So we closed on it, and it went okay. And what I do also is after I go into contract, I ask the seller, I go, listen, I need to show the property to potential buyers and to contractors. So I need a couple of times access, and I'll parade 50 people through the house if I have to. Sometimes I'll do it, and they're usually okay with that. They usually understand. They understand. The implication is that I'm going to definitely fix it up, and so they say, why do you need potential buyers? I go, my potential buyers are going to tell me what to do. Maybe they want a bathroom here, maybe they don't want a bathroom here. And then sometimes they say, why'd you wholesale? And I say, we had somebody who bought it as is. I did it.
Yeah. The thing I love about it is you're just transparent with them. Hey, listen,
I'm not hiding anything.
Yeah, there's no hiding. I might assign the contract, and I think I like how you're so upfront with these people, and that's why you're having so much success in a tough market in Long Island, is because you're telling them, hey, listen, I might assign this, I might sell this to somebody else, and if they're cool with that, and you guys have that dialogue going forward, there's no harm, no foul there. And
I never want to surprise anybody. I'm as upfront with them as I can be. And if the house is vacant, I'll ask them to put a lockbox on it, and I'll tell them I want to show it.
Totally. Awesome. So I think a lot of people from New York are getting some good ideas. So guys, actionable items that we're going to pivot into Michael's best deal and worst deal and wrap it up here is, if you're in New York, number one, know that this market's a little bit different, and understand that because it's a little bit harder. I think also, Michael, this is something I actually want to run by you. It's funny. I think because of it's a little harder, I think there's, at least for me, I don't know if it's like this on Long Island, but I think there's less competition in New York because it's so much hairier to get a deal in the contract. At least that's what I see in my market. I'm not in your market specifically, but that's what I'm seeing.
I agree 100%. I mean, I didn't realize it, right? Because when you go to the auctions and you're sitting there with the 500 people who are all bidding, you think there's a million people doing it. But I got to tell you, the people that go on auction, I think they're nuts because I think it's a crazy way to buy properties. But let me tell you what's funny is that I thought those would be the best buyers for me to wholesale to. Most of those guys will not buy a deal from us because they think if I'm selling them a deal, something's wrong with it. So there are guys out there who I knew would buy a cape in a certain city for $300,000. They bought it. I saw them buy a dozen of them. But if I ever offered them the same cape for $250, they wouldn't buy it. Like, that's crazy to me.
I know.
But I agree that I don't think there's as much competition as you think. I think there are people dabbling in it and sending mail, but not really following up and making it a real business with systems. It's very few.
There's no big boy. Yeah, there's not a lot of big boys. I mean, there's successful investors. I know several in your market. I know several,
Sure.
Obviously, Larry and Frank, Billy Alvaro, great guys. Billy's in Long Island. Larry and Frank are in my market, actually, in Hudson Valley. And Dave Brown, another great friend of mine. I mean, I think we're all almost friends, too, because there's not that many of them. I mean, in Dallas, Fort Worth, where I buy, there's probably 10 investors doing at least 10 deals a month. In New York, I think we have like a little inner circle, right. Like New York investor inner circle, like me and Devin and then the other guys. So
I was talking to somebody in Phoenix. He has a buyer's list of 60,000 buyers. 60,000 that he sends texts and emails to on every deal he has. He never needs to use the MLS because he has 60,000 people. I don't think I could ever get a buyer's list that big in New York. I spent all day for the next 20 years doing it.
60,000 buyers.
Is that crazy?
That's unbelievable. Now, if I ever get a deal in Phoenix, I know who I'm calling. My goodness.
Right.
Well, listen, awesome, actionable advice. So, guys, if you're in New York, guys, understand that it's different. But Michael, look, we're going to get into this now. I guess we're going to – I guess we'll get into the best deal ever, and we'll show you guys why it might make sense to invest in New York, even as long as you understand the differences. Michael, let's talk about the best ever deal you've done. Let's unpack it from soup to nuts, start to finish, and then we'll talk about the worst deal you've ever done, and then we'll wrap the show up here because I know you got a lot of stuff going on today. So
Sure.
Let's get into the best and worst deal segment of the show.
So the best deal was an older gentleman who
Let's unpack where the marketing, like the marketing, the
Oh,
lead, the system.
so it was a direct mail deal. Very old guy in his 90s, had seven properties, and four of them were like in a bad area and had illegal units, and there were liens on him, and he couldn't handle it anymore. This guy had no system. Every single tenant, name and phone number and rent was in his head. I had to sit there with a pen and paper and just write the stuff down. And he wanted a lot of money, and we thought there might be some way to make money on it. And this is a crazy thing. So we went to, three of the properties were contiguous with each other. There were three houses, and they were on a busy street. And we went like on a whim to a retail place, to a retail realtor. Like all they did was retail stores. And they said, wow, you know, you can sell just these properties for like $2.5 million. We're like, wow, we're gonna make millions on this. And he goes, there's just one thing I have to check, one thing. So we were like, you know, we were already spending the money. I was already scheduling my podcast to tell everybody how I made more money on a wholesale deal than anyone else, and this was great. And then like a month or two later, the guy called back and goes, oh, that one thing, yeah, it's not gonna work. So we thought the deal might be dead, and there's just no way to make money. But then we realized that two of the properties on it were different than the others, and maybe we can just buy the first five. So we went. We started doing some marketing to find a buyer for the first five, and we found someone who bought it. And we bought all five properties from him, and we wholesaled the deal out. Actually, we double closed on it, which cost a lot of money, but it was worth it. And we double closed, and I think we made almost $200,000 on that deal.
On a wholesale deal.
On a wholesale deal, yeah.
Oh my God! You double close. Did you sell like? Was it a 5-house contract, or was it a? It was
weird. Two of the houses were on the same like lot, so it was four contracts.
Holy cow! You made two. So guys, this is the whole point here. Michael's in New York. Clearly, he's in Long Island. He made $200,000 on a wholesale deal. There's some people in other markets that'll take them 2 years to make $200,000 wholesale. Right. He made it on one deal. So that's the benefit of doing business in New York. I mean, it's funny. We have a deal right now where it's not a double close, but we're going to make $50,000 buying in and putting a house on the MLS, $50,000 spread, you know, without even, we cleaned it out. That's it. $50K just without, that's more on a spread than most people in these smaller markets will make, you know, in 6 months. So the benefits of New York are seriously, I think they outweigh the negatives. Obviously, that's why we're both doing deals there. So
we've been doing some wholesaling, also similar things where we'll find something, we'll just clean it out, or maybe paint it, or maybe do, you know, a couple $1,000s worth of work and throw it on MLS, and there's enough of a spread that we can make money on it.
Money, yeah, awesome. So that's a hell of a deal. $200,000 wholesale deal. That might be a record for the wholesale.
I wish there was some guy made $1 million on a wholesale deal. I wanted to beat that, but we didn't.
Damn. Well, listen, let's pivot into the worst deal ever, and then we'll let you go here. So tell me about your biggest turkey.
So it was always a gut rehab from the start that we did, and it took too long, and we did too much, and we priced it too high, and that's, you know, a problem we had for a while is that we were doing gut rehabs and then pricing them based on what we spent. That's a huge mistake. Buyers don't care, and we had just sort of missed. It already peaked in that area.
Yeah.
So, like, if we would have put it out for like $5.99, we probably would have done okay. But our costs were like, you know, mid to upper five. So we put it out above $6, and then no one bought it, and then it sat, and then we ended up selling it for below $6. So you can never price anything based on how much money you put in. That's a huge mistake. That's a lesson we learned, and I think we lost $20,000. Oh, worse still, we lost $20,000 on.
$20,000. So so you weren't selling the property off the ARV, you were selling the property how much you had in it, how much you kind of wanted to make?
You know, when we first started, there were more comps in that area, in the upper area, but the market had just peaked and we didn't realize it yet.
Sure.
So we looked at those comps and they were getting a little old, but you know, we really wanted to make more money, and you know, we had an investor on it that we wanted to make happy, so we priced it too high, and then it just sat. And time is such a killer, so took too long, and we ended up losing $20,000. That was our worst deal.
Wow. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing with everyone. I have one more question for you, just kind of out of the blue here. What are you to get your? I mean, obviously the funding, hard money, private money, that's pretty straightforward, but with the earnest money deposit, since you're putting such a big deposit down, what are you doing for the, I mean, I put my company money into these deposits, but it's not that much. I mean, are you getting private money to do earnest money deposits? I mean, how are you getting creative with that? Because that's expensive. That's 50 grand a month in overhead.
So it's funny. So first of all, we have a couple of lines of credit from our banks that we can use for that. But one of our attorneys is willing to lend us that. So that's great. And we just pay him a fee when it gets,
Okay.
when he gets, I mean, he does that because he's done, hundreds of deals with us. So he knows that we're good for it.
Yeah.
And we have two other lenders also. One's a title company that will lend it to us, and one's a private guy that'll lend it to us. So we don't have a problem with the MD money. We can always get it. And, we'll pay a couple $1,000s on it. And it's always worth it.
Also doing business. Awesome. Well, listen, really, really good stuff. I'm very happy we're able to come on here and discuss this very important topic for people in New York. So, Michael, if people want to get a hold of you, I mean, is there anything that we can do to serve you? I mean, what are some of the best ways we can get in touch with you? I know you're starting to make some YouTube videos now, and they've been fantastic. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to, maybe JV with you or be a potential lender, someone in Long Island, something like that?
Sure. So, our office number is 516-209-2010. You can always call us at that number. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very open and easy to find. If you search me, I'm there.
Absolutely. Michael Pinter, Michael Pinter. Pretty, very easy name to remember. So, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Super excited. And this is going to be a good one for everyone in New York. So thanks so much for your time today. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.